Hi everyone! I've made a 30-minute long video for the $12 reward, but I want to give you a short version or a preview about how to draw flowers. It are just little preview shots and I hope you find it helpful. I'm going to draw another flower that I've made in my last painting. I think it's such a pretty flower. It is bigger and a little bit more complicated, but I still chose a rose that is not so super hard to draw. I hope that these steps will help you and that you can take this with you to your next drawing. You know that it all comes down to practice, practice, practice. And if you have a subject that you think it's really hard to draw, just try to draw it many times until you finally get it. They say repetition is the mother of skills, so repeat yourself a couple of times. When I realized that I had to get better at drawing hands, for example, I would get a magazine and I would draw 100 hands out of it. And this seems a bit much, but it really helped me and I definitely saw improvements. So I'm drawing this one with red pencil. I'm using Staedtler Leads 0.5 millimeters. I've posted all my favorite art supplies in my last post on Patreon, so check that out. I'm drawing the petals on the front first and then those petals that are hidden in the back. I'm drawing a very light circle in the middle because that will help me later with those drop shape holes that you can see in the petals. Yeah, you can see the reference picture on the right, so you can follow exactly what I'm working on. I'm pointing all those little drop shape holes towards the center of the flower, and then I'm going to draw all these little dots or anthers, that's how they are called actually. In the middle it's a little bit more dense, and on the outside they are more spread out. As you can see again, the edges of the flower are quite wobbly, so I'm not drawing them like perfect smooth petals. Yeah, I'm almost always working from very light lines to darker lines, so now I will just go over the same lines like the sketch lines and make them a little bit more stronger here and there. And now when a leaf or a petal bends a little bit, draw the back of the fold more straight instead of completely round. As you can see in the example image, it's a little bit more straight. Now that I've made all the edges darker, I can start with the shading. You can see that I'm shading the same way as I did with the ballpoint pen, so little strokes that are parallel to each other. I also like to shade at the edge, but leave a little lighter area there. Maybe you can see it on the picture that the edges are catching light, like there's a white border. You can see it better on the top left of the flower in the picture, but I'm applying it in more places. I think it's a really nice effect, and especially if you're going to add more shadow underneath the petal, it will stand out even more. Now I know the red pencil can break easily, so if you have that problem, I have 2 tips for those darker areas. Keep the tip of your pencil really short so you can push a little harder without breaking it. Or you can move a couple of times over the same area, so I mean like shade a couple of times over the same area, so it will be darker. Okay, what else can I tell you about shading? I make the hidden petals in the back way more darker than the ones in the front, so this gives it more depth. And with this shading, I'm following the shapes of the petals, so I'm following the center to the edges of the flower. I think that this is the best way. If this was a hair, for example, I would also follow the shape and shade in that direction, if that makes sense. Now, as you can see, I shade quite randomly in different places. I will not focus on one particular part, but more to different parts. Some artists will focus on one part of the drawing and render it completely in detail, so just that you know, everyone works differently. I always find that very interesting to see, you know, other people drawing, but what works for me is working in different areas so I can see the gradients all over the place, and I'm going to add more shadow where it's just needed. I also added a sharper shadow underneath the petals for more depth. Yeah, if you can't make nice shading lines, by the way, just move your paper or sketchbook, because that helps too. You know, you need a nice angle for your wrist and your hand to move. Okay, I think I'm done with the red pencil, and I would like to make some contrast with the black ballpoint pen. Now I will draw some stamen in the middle of the flower and a couple of leaves. This is just a little bit of freestyling, and with that I mean I'm not following the reference completely. Oftentimes I take it as a starting point because I often have figures or subjects to work with, and the flowers have to move organically, not like if they are cut out and it doesn't flow with the rest of the illustration or painting. So yeah, that's why I just make them up as I go. And what I like to do is I make the ends of the leaves a little darker, and also if they are folded, that one side is more way more darker than the other side. I just think it looks nice and it creates some depth. If I would show you one of my older drawings, I wouldn't use a lot of darker areas. I was drawing quite light, maybe afraid to make those dark parts, but I think it gives the drawing something extras, and if an area is completely dark, it adds some contrast. In the reference picture there were also some roses from the side, not completely open, so I'm drawing them like this. I'm just drawing the basic shape and then those half shown petals on each side. The petals in the middle are like a couple of layers, so you only see the little part of them. And I'm also just drawing those twigs really randomly, and they're also just freestyled, so not very realistic. At last, I'm going to explain how I'm drawing two big flowers in this page in my sketchbook. I was already drawing some, but I will erase the sketch lines and start from scratch, because you were also starting from scratch. Especially with those big flowers, it's hard to start. It looks so difficult. Where should you begin, right? Now you have those flowers where the petals are moving everywhere, and it is kind of impossible to see a rhythm, a shape, something to work with. So with these ones, we are going to try. At first, try to find the center and try to draw that at first. It is darker than the rest of the flowers, so that helps. Now I'm not going to draw each petal immediately, but I'm just going to draw a light shape and just keep the difficult stuff for later. I make the center of the flower dark with a stumper, a smudger. I think it has different names, but you know what I mean. The paper roll with 2 points. So I use that technique also in faces if I don't know where the exact spot is, but I kind of know where it is going to be. Yeah, I'm just going to smudge it a little bit, and it gives you some support. Now you see that the petals on the left are repeating themselves and they are overlapping each other, so try to draw them that way, so they're moving to the right side of the flower. Now the steps are the same as the red flower that I was drawing before. The edges of the petals are really organic and wobbly, and I'm paying attention at the round shapes. Especially with this flower, you have many layers, and you can see the ones in the front better than the ones on the sides, for example. So you have to see them as little spoon shapes, if that makes sense. So if you see it from the side, it's way smaller. Now I'm automatically working from the front to the back because the front petals are easier, and from that point you can work to the sides. And because I don't want to get lost, I'm drawing a couple of really dark petals in the back of the flower, or in the background of the flower, so you know that the flower is ending there. That's what I also did with the red flower, and it gives more depth, and it makes the petals stand out more. Okay, I'm zooming in a bit so you can see those lines that I'm drawing. I will draw them all to the center of the flower, also if they are banded and coming from the side. Just think about the single petal that we were drawing and where the growing point would be, because that's where the lines needs to go. Just turn your paper upside down if that works better for you to draw those lines. I'm also trying to make more shadow and highlights. If you dab a little bit with your kneadable eraser, you can easily lighten up areas and sketch lines and draw your new lines on top of it. I really like the kneadable eraser because other erasers will leave crumbs, and if you wipe them away, you could also smudge the lines. Okay, just render it out a little bit, and this is done. Okay, if you want to see longer videos and more videos, you can visit my Patreon page. The link is down below. I share a lot of tips there. Also, if you give a thumbs up, more people will see this video, so thank you for that. Oh, and also I have new products in my Society 6 shop, like pencil cases, pillows, travel mugs, all kind of things, so that's really cool. So okay, keep sketching and painting, and see you next time, hopefully.